Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the ColdFusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Good morning. Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition. It's March 10th, 2020, and I have a very special guest today.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Eric Peterson, Senior Developer for Ortus Solutions.
Yep, and I'm Gavin Pickens, Software Consultant for Ortus Solutions. So thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks to our sponsor, Ortus Solutions, for making this happen. So one of the big things Ortus Solutions does is training, if you didn't know. We obviously do trainings before most conferences, but we also do them online as well. So you can get trained by the actual makers of ColdFusion, CommandBox, TestBox, ContentBox. We offer on-site training, regional training seminars, virtual trainings as well. So we have trainings for everything available any way you want them. So if you guys have a special need or whatnot as well, we can also do a la carte training. So if you guys are interested in trainings, let us know and we can get something set up for you. And also, our Patreon supporters help make this podcast possible as well. So we're about 39% of the way to our goal for getting our podcast fully funded. So thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, and we'll mention who you are later. But if you guys love our podcast and all we do with ColdFusion, maybe consider going to ortussolutions.com and going to About Us Sponsors and looking at our Patreon pages and seeing how you can help there. So lots of plans, lots of options. We appreciate all the support you guys give us, so thank you, everybody. Okay.
So, some big news this week.
Yep.
It seems that nothing can escape the current coronavirus situation.
Yep.
And that includes CF Summit East. Adobe announced earlier this week that CF Summit East has been canceled. And a couple days ago, Ortus announced as well that the PreConference workshop that was planned has also been canceled. So,
yep. So
sad news, but understandable.
Yep. So if you go to the the ColdFusion portal, you may see a couple of links up there to the conference as well. When you get there, there's a FAQ of all the information. So they're providing refunds and everything, obviously, and they have no dates made up yet for postponement or redoing the conference or anything. So if you have any more questions, go look at the site and you can get to it basically from there. And in the conference section later, we'll give you the link to that area so you can find out more about it. Into the Box is still going ahead at this time. Ortus Solutions is thinking about the best interest of everybody involved, though, so we're monitoring the situation, and we'll make an announcement as soon as decisions are made, hoping the situation improves for everybody's sake all around the world. So sad news, obviously. A lot of things going on there, but hopefully we get more information, and we'll let you know as things go forward. So,
well, one thing for those that I don't think many for CF Summit East, but if you did buy like a plane ticket or for some of these other conferences, a lot of airlines have been announcing their extended like exchange programs, refund programs because of the current health situation. So definitely check into your ticket, see what you can do if you're in that situation where your travel is now canceled.
Yeah, so I know a lot of the cruise ships and everything are giving, some cash back and some credit for future trips and everything. So yeah, definitely a good point. Check in soon. And obviously with our Into the Box conference, we know that that's an issue for those of you already booked. So we're looking at, like I said, all the options, and we'll give you guys an update as soon as possible. And for those of you that are interested in the content, Ortus is very, very strongly believing in getting content out to people. So, if the conference does not go ahead, I'm sure we'll make any allowances to try and get that out to you, whether it's increased webinars or online trainings, online workshops, whatever we can do. We got to work with the situation we have, but we got a lot of great content we want to share. And so we'll get that to you guys one way or the other. So, okay. So enough with the sad stuff. Let's talk about some good stuff.
Yes. Including the big 5.0 for CommandBox.
Yep, 77 tickets were closed for this release. That's a big one.
Even bigger, I think, is the update to be able to use, I think through Java 13 right now. Previously, CommandBox 4.8 and the 4 series could only run on Java 8. So now you can run it on 11, 13, any of those.
Yeah, a big change there. We are sticking to the stable 11, so the long-term support is for Java 11, so we're stuck with that. If you guys look, 13 do work pretty good, but according to the end of life, 13 end of life's in about a week and a half, and then 14 comes out, which only lasts till September. So basically, there's one long-term support and then several smaller 6-month support windows. So we're sticking with the LTS 11. But those other ones do work, and Brad's tested them, and he's chatting up here that he's been working on 13, and it works pretty good. So yeah, so it's very, very cool. A lot of great stuff gone in there, but the main wait was just to get the Lucee 5.3.4 version, which has the support for Java 11. So thanks to Team Lucee for getting that finished, so we could get that out. I know Brad's been waiting anxiously to get that out. So.
Speaking of Lucee, ForgeBox is now getting every version of Lucee available the same day it's published. So in the past, it was a little bit of a manual job to move over those Lucee engines, but now it's fully automated, and you can even check it out on Ortus's GitHub. There's a ForgeBox CF engine publisher, and so you have every version of Lucee, Lucee Lite, the new snapshots that come out. You can also stick your server on the bleeding edge by doing Lucee at BE. So
yeah, that's the things. Before we did, every once in a while we would do a bleeding edge release, a snapshot, but they happen so often because Misha bumps the version every time he releases a commit basically, and so it was bumping all the time. So Brad would manually do the stable releases, but not all those snapshots. But he finally got around to getting a task runner set up, and so that code you mentioned on that Ortus Solutions repo. If you guys are looking at task runners, this is how Brad writes one. So it might be interesting for you guys to check that out too. So some good code shared out there. But if you go to ForgeBox.io and go to the Lucee in there, and you click on the versions tab, you should be able to see all the versions, and there's a lot now. So because of this, we are going to be reworking our versions tab to make it easy to turn on stable or all releases, and maybe a way to filter it a little better. But same thing happens from the command line. You get all the versions pop up, so you get a lot of options. So you can't complain. You can't find the bleeding edge now because it's there. So.
Yeah, this is kind of exciting, having that bleeding edge tag, especially because we'll be able to, in our libraries like ColdFusion and the other modules that we have, add a Travis job or whatever your CI solution is to test against Lucee's bleeding edge, and even have it test weekly or monthly to make sure it's always up to date and catch those any potential bugs sooner on your CI server rather than having to manually test it. So I'm excited to add that to a bunch of modules.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is a lot of these snapshots don't get a lot of testing, and so they make it out to a stable version and everybody complains and it's already sort of too late. So yeah, it's definitely a big improvement, and I know that they're every time that something comes in now, we're running out tests on everything, and yeah, Brad's got that script running pretty nice. And if you guys want, you can go look at the Travis CI job as well and see the sort of the build history for the repo to see when it runs and the output it generates and everything. So it's pretty cool. So I know Brad was pretty excited. We even having this pumping into our Slack now, so every time it runs, you see like 15 or 20 lines of all the different builds that get brought in. So it's pretty cool. We're watching you, Misha. We see every build now. Okay, for those of you who don't want to travel, there's a few webinars coming up for you too. So actually we have a couple coming up pretty quick here. We've got the first one is an Adobe webinar. So Adobe ColdFusion for the next decade, all about buzzworthy ColdFusion 2020. And that's going to be March 19th at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And it's just a 60-minute online webinar, but basically it's going to go through and sort of give you a sneak peek of some of those pretty cool things coming up in 2020. So I know that they did one a couple of months ago, so I'm sure that they'll go over some of those features and then some of the new ones that are coming out. So it was a pretty cool little webinar last time, so if you guys missed it, definitely check out the new one. So
Yeah, and you can find that either on the Adobe portal or on the Carasoft website.
yep, and so we'll have the link in the show notes for you there.
The next webinar we have is by FusionReactor, and it is installing FusionReactor in dynamic environments. So this includes CommandBox, Docker. If you've ever wondered how to get FusionReactor running in those environments, this is the webinar for you. It is on March 25th. It will be at 3 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. UTC, and whatever time zone that translates for you, you can go sign up for this stream on the FusionReactor.com website.
Yep, and then Ortus also has another webinar coming up, March 27th. So we're going to be having a CB Elasticsearch webinar with Michael Bourne. So that'll be March 27th, 11 a.m. Eastern. And he's going to be talking about that. So the registration links will be available on the ortussolutions.com/event/webinar, and we'll give you more info as we get it there too. So
now, if I can plug this for a minute, because I've been using Elasticsearch a lot. If you ever do a SQL search with and you put wildcards around it, and you're trying to do that on like 5 fields to get back results, you would very much do yourself a favor to look into Elasticsearch, and CB Elasticsearch makes it super quick. So
yeah, we're doing some pretty cool stuff with that. I know for quite a few big projects with Ortus. I know that you're doing a lot of work with one customer, and Michael's doing a lot of work with another customer. So that's why you guys are going to be doing the Elasticsearch workshop Into the Box, all going well.
yes.
So you guys will find out everything about that. But this will be sort of a sneak preview, a good overview, and hopefully give you a good reason to jump into it. But yeah, Elasticsearch looks super good, and it's crazy fast. I mean, the stuff we did with this one client, it's ridiculous how fast it is. So, they're complaining about a couple hundred milliseconds sometimes. Like, that's faster than anything else you run anywhere. So,
Can never be fast enough.
exactly. But yeah, it's crazy fast. Okay, so we want to just give you a reminder about the State of the CF Union 2020 survey. The main reason we want to remind you today is that our podcast is listed there, so you want to make sure that you say, hey, we listen to them. So I don't care what you say about everything else, but at least give us some love. Hopefully a few people might even find out about us from the survey, and then they might come find us. So
yeah, I know Brad has pointed out in the past, but this survey really helps us determine what support we need for our products, and what tools we can put out there that will help fill gaps. So it's very useful to us at Ortus. So please take the time to fill it out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really interesting too. Like I said, I told Brad I want to have some like 10-year graphs and 5-year graphs, and find out how things are evolving over time. Like I'd like to see the Docker graph and maybe CommandBox and see how that's growing, and some of the other tools like the blogs, see which platforms are getting less used over time. I think that'd be pretty cool. So yeah, I'm curious how that works out. But yeah, it's on teartech.com, and Brad just shared the link in the chat, and we'll have the link in the show notes too. Speaking of podcasts, we do have another version of this podcast, which is the conference edition. And last week we announced we're on iTunes, so hopefully you guys can find us there and start listening. We're also on YouTube, just like this one is as well. And we've got a few more episodes released. So we have Luis Mahano's ColdFusion Hero to Superhero workshop interview. So he'll tell you all about that and what you'll learn and what you need to know before you go. And then John Clausen, we stole him for a few minutes, busy man, but we got him to talk about his containerizing CFML applications workshop that he'll be doing at the Into the Box conference as well. So those 2 episodes were released, and we've got more coming. So Michael Bourne will be telling us a little more about his CB Elasticsearch workshop, and then we'll be talking to speakers and some sponsors as well to find out more about what they'll be bringing to us at the conference. So go check that out. And we have the website, which is conference.modernize.They.io, where you can subscribe to any of the many different podcast providers. And you can also see the YouTube playlist as well. So I'll share those links in the chat. We'll move on to the next thing.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap about conferences. We talked about this a little bit already, but that the CF Summit East has been canceled. That includes the post-conference certification and Ortus's pre-conference workshop. So if you had paid for any of those, you should be getting a refund. And yeah, sad news, but understandable.
Yep, and as we mentioned, Into the Box at this point is still on. We're evaluating the situation, and we'll be making decisions soon, so we'll let you know as soon as we can. We'll leave all the information in the show notes for you, but we're going to skip over that for today. Obviously, if you want to find out more about the workshops and everything, you can do that through the conference podcast. IntoTheBox.org has all the information, has all the workshops, all the sessions and speakers up there, so you can go look at that information there. But yeah, unfortunately, we're still evaluating the situation. Hopefully, there's news breaking soon that'll make it clear one way or the other which way to go there. So, yep. Okay.
So hopefully, Into the Box can get in through the coronavirus stuff, but very hopefully, CF Summit West in October, we won't be still talking about this, or rather, it won't be an issue still.
Yeah.
CF Summit West is going to be October, looks like the 28th and 29th, with a pre-conference certification on the 27th.
Yep, and then obviously as things progress, Ortus will have a workshop or two scheduled before as well. We'll just, again, depends on the climate and the situation, so we're going to watch that. CF Camp is still deciding, and again, I think most things are in a holding pattern right now with everything around it, so as soon as they have information, we'll get that out to you. Okay. So let's jump to the blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. There's actually quite a lot of this this week. So first thing was just a recap on the Ortus canceling the the workshop due to the virus. So we'll jump past that and jump into Ben Nadal's transparent image backgrounds.
Yeah, I think all of Ben's this week on our news podcast had to do with graphics magic, which was one of those things that I had never looked at or used. I don't know if you have, Gavin.
I used Image Magic, and so this is Graphics Magic, sort of a variant. But yeah, so he's got several of these, and so we'll jump through them. And for those watching the video, I'm going to share my screen here as well. So, I mean, basically, he talked about in this one talking about transparent images. So when people upload them, a lot of times you have a transparent image, and it doesn't look very good when you're doing thumbnails. So they wanted to get like a solid border behind it. But with anti-aliasing and everything, it would look really blocky and choppy because of the way that his first attempt worked. So he talked about some ways to get around that with some settings. So pretty neat. So if you guys are working with some of the image magic or using ColdFusion currently, he's got a few tricks in some of these. So we'll let you dive into more. But that one there is basically replacing transparent image backgrounds with a solid color. So yeah. As we go down the list, you'll see a few more from him there. But we also got a tweet from the Seattle ColdFusion user group. This is actually a pretty cool one. I'm going to share my screen for this too because I like the image. So smashing on the keyboard. But they're looking for their next topics and presenters. They want to share, looking for people who want to share about their last ColdFusion project or whatnot. So if you're interested, reach out to them. I'm sure that they're probably looking for people in person, but they might be, willing to do some online ones as well. So definitely something to keep in mind if you guys are wanting to do a conference talk when the conferences are up and running again. Speaking at a user group is a great practice. Okay, so we had Ben Adele talking about centering an image and annotating them using graphics magic. So again, more good stuff there. CommandBox 5 was also released, so we mentioned that earlier. So if you want more information on all of those 77 tickets that were basically fixed in that, you can check that out here.
Yeah,
So
and as far as I know, this is a breaking version change because a lot of the underlying libraries got updated. That power command box, but I was able to update it with nothing needing to be changed. So don't let the version 5 scare you off.
yeah, um, we got a lot of different support here. Like I say, a lot of the undertow stuff changed, and there's more options, new server tray options as well, fog logging improvements, Lucee extension management support, better get access token support. So a lot of great things went into this, and so yeah, definitely worth looking at. Get your system upgraded locally, and that way you can double check before hopefully you're pushing them to production. So yep. And then Charlie Earhart posted something on the Ortus Solution. Sorry, the ColdFusion portal. Yeah, having a tongue-tied day today already. But I guess he found a weird issue that was reported on the Adobe site. And so if you see there's a registration that popped up. So if you click on it, it'll take you to a page that tells you why it's been canceled. But right here, we have the CF related downloads as a problem. So when you actually look at it, it has all the side menus first, and then the content's down below it. So if you do need to get to it, the content is all there, but there's some style sheet problems by the look of it, and it got it all messed up. So if you're anyone that can actually help get that fixed, let us know, or go have a look at this blog post to take care of that too. So it's confused a lot of people.
The next blog post we have is by Gray Desmond, also on the ColdFusion portal, entitled "Don't Forget Query Results Are Also Arrays." And specifically, he's calling out how you can look at more than just the current row in a query using an array syntax after the column. And he gives an example of how he uses that. So
yeah, that's a pretty cool thing to remember. I mean, the one thing I always remember is that when you try and loop through it, it's not very pretty, though, is it? So if you want to serialize it and everything, you get some pretty ugly serialization. But yeah, array notation for accessing the different rows and everything is definitely useful.
this next blog post was one that I really appreciated, having done some performance tuning as well. It is on the CF Wheels website, debugging plugin performance in CF Wheels 2.x with FusionReactor. So
Yeah,
they talk about they released this new plugin architecture, and they were getting some performance issues. And using FusionReactor and their line debugging information, they were able to see which calls were taking the longest amount of time.
yeah. So obviously we don't use CF wheels, but what they're talking about and showing is applicable across platforms, frameworks, etc. So very interesting. So I know you dove into a little bit and everything, and yeah, pretty interesting. So I know that
Yeah.
Brad says some of this stuff is basically how the code coverage works too, right?
Correct. It is. It's the same. It's the same underlying part of FusionReactor. For code coverage, we don't care how long it took. Um,
Just
but
what ran.
here you can, using one of their, this is one of the integral or FusionReactor repos, you can see the average time, the number of times it was called, the total time it took. So you can see a lot of information there. And again, shout out to FusionReactor for being awesome like that, but also they gave a temporary license to CF Wheels to be able to debug this. So thank you, FusionReactor, for supporting open source.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, next we have another one from Benedell, and here's a picture with Gert. But annotating image using, image point using graphics magic. And so one of the cool things I've noticed lately is he's been adding a lot of little videos too with his blog posts. So for those of you that don't like reading, you can watch the video and still get a good amount of information out of it. But yeah, he also does here mention he is a bit of a novice. So basically use it as an exploration, not the way to do things. But a lot of code as usual, but you got to show the dog. So, but basically works with some annotations and everything, and how it works pretty nicely. So again, if you guys are using Image Magic or Graphics Magic, or you need something, he's got a lot of great stuff in there. Okay, so this was pretty interesting. So James Moberg actually tweeted. He was talking about a new VS Code extension called WebHint.io, and I guess it's really good for HTML hints and tips. And so if you have that installed, it works great. Except it doesn't work on ColdFusion, layouts and whatnot. So he was tweeting back and forth with someone, basically the maintainer, about it, and so they said, well, throw us an issue. So he's filed an issue for it there, just to be able to, work with any extension, because a lot of programming languages still output HTML. It doesn't have to be an HTML or HTML extension for it to be valid. So he's got an issue there. So if you guys check out the show notes, you can go maybe vote or make a comment. But I definitely think it would be a good little addition to everything we have. So
yeah, one thing I liked about the web hint platform is it gave you a lot of accessibility hints. So telling you when, like, I forgot an alt on an image, or hey, you made this div clickable, but you didn't add the right roles to it, so it's not visible to screen readers, things like that. So
even better, yeah.
Things that we often forget as we're building our apps.
Well, I guess it's even more important then, because accessibility is important, and it's something that we often overlook. So yeah, definitely a big plus for that one. So go check that out there.
All right. The next blog we have is Pete Freitag. Do you UTF-8? It's easier than you think. So this one hits in a very special place to my heart, because I love emoji, and you probably have seen some apps that don't let you put emoji in them, and it usually has to do with their database. So Pete here is talking about MySQL and about how to he gives a little bit of background on UTF-8, about it specifically with MySQL, and how you can get emoji support in your MySQL databases. It is easy to start out. I will say, if you have to convert an existing database, it becomes more difficult, but possible. So just start with emoji support.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a good background, because some people don't know why it doesn't work, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I know that we've had a few databases we've had to convert over time, so definitely start with that. I mean, it should be. I don't know why they don't just default to a better encoding, but I guess it all depends on your tool.
I think Pete's article asked that question too. So
yeah, I mean, one of the tools I use always tries to put it in like some, like a Latin format or something weird, or Swedish CI, and I'm like, why? But I guess that's what happens when you use, certain tools. They do what they do. So
yeah, I'm sure there's a reason, back in the day, why it was set that way, and then defaults just carry over.
Yeah.
So
the next one's kind of fun. So talking of State of the Union survey. So apparently this is amusing. So they're talking about what type of development environment you have, and they say it's shared development database server, but they were finding it amusing that the development I put on production, which we all laugh, but sad to say, that's just still the way of life for a lot of people. So yeah, but I'm glad you found it amusing, Jay.
The next two tweets were kind of interesting. Started with it's Ben Nadal, and then the reply to his is he found an ocean-powered search engine, which, if that doesn't make any sense to you, you should come check out this tweet, because they explain it.
Yep.
And the person that replied mentioned that in addition to being powered by hydropower, that's the ocean-powered part, it's also powered 100% by Lucee. So here's a search engine if you are more privacy-minded and you want to support this environment cause. And Lucee, check out, what's the search engine name? Help me out.
Ekoru. So EKORU. Yeah, .org. But yeah, so basically, they have a policy where the IP or the query text doesn't touch their hard disks, all in-memory transactions and everything. But yeah, running on Lucee, and every search you do cleans the oceans. So pretty interesting. So it's all hydroelectric, and they do a lot of cleaning at the same time. So pretty dang cool. And that was not what I was expecting when I was reading Twitter.
Yeah.
That's kind of out of nowhere. It's just pretty interesting. Okay, so we got more Ben Adele. Um, so part of the fun of just showing Ben's, as we get to see all the cool pictures he's got. But yeah, so he also talks about getting image width and height using graphics magic. So that's a pretty standard function in most tools there. But there's all sorts of different formatting here too. So you can, when you get the format of an image, you can get file size, comments, directories, file name, extensions, height, input file name, all sorts of different things. There's a lot of different things you can get. So a lot of great information can come out of it. So again, image graphics magic. I keep saying image magic because I used to use that way back when. Because I used to use CFimage DLL on Windows, but when we had to do some stuff on Linux back in the day before CFimage even existed inside the engine, we had to do some weird stuff with image magic. You just CF execute and then just keep looking for the file to see if it was there yet, if it was finished. It was really weird process. So glad things improved.
Yeah. Next blog is more video than the blog, but there's a blog post that goes along with it. It's from Matt Clemente, and it's about getting started with CommandBox custom commands. So this is where in CommandBox you can type, all those fun little namespace, ColdBox create app, testbox run, all that. Matt goes into how to create one from scratch, and including the nested commands or namespace commands. So it was a great watch. I highly recommend you check it out on his website, blog.mattclemente.com.
Yep, for sure. I know Brad was all excited when he saw this. I think we mentioned it briefly. This video just came out right before last week, but I wanted to remind you of the blog post and find out more about it. Leave your comments there. Okay, so we also had a tweet from Aubrey Fletcher. Basically was working with exorcism. So we know we've mentioned Code Wars a lot lately as a good tool to get started and test and play with and everything, but Brad Wood actually spent a lot of time on the exorcism platform, setting up a whole bunch of ColdFusion learning basically examples and everything. So exorcism is sort of a whole process where you work on things, but you work on it locally. So if you wanted, you've done some Code Wars and you want to get moving to the next step, exorcism basically has you run those tasks locally and sort of complete them, all using like CommandBox or whatnot, and then you submit your answers back. So it's a pretty interesting setup, and Brad went and did quite a lot of work on that and got it set up. So if you wanted some more puzzles or some more teaching, check out the exorcism platform. It's exorcism.io, but Brad has some there. So thanks for that shout out, Aubrey. And then the next one is from Gray Desmond, and this is pretty funny too, because we're talking about how Calvin Staton was on the homepage of the portal. We'll see if he's still there. Yep, there he is. So Adobe ColdFusion Certified Professional. So that's from the Vegas event. So he was certified out there, and everyone got their nice little photo with their certificate and everything. So now he's extra famous. So, but yeah, it's pretty funny because Gray was like, I hope it's not just randomly pulled and it's the same for everybody. But yeah. See, look, he's finally famous. Okay, so that wraps up our tweets, blogs, and videos of the week. We had quite a few this week, so yeah. Next on the list we have is the coding challenge. So I've actually spent a bit of time going through this, fixing it up. So I think it's ready to be run. So I'm gonna go through it and add all the workflow for doing pull requests, so you guys can actually submit your answers. But the idea is we should be able to go and basically pull it down from ForgeBox, go to your models folder, and in the CFML challenge, add a function for your reverse string, and basically get your test to pass, and then you've completed it. And then we'll actually allow you to submit that pull request for your model file back, and it'll run the test against our test and see if it passed. So yeah, so we're getting pretty close there. So if anyone wants to jump in it, they can already. But next week I'm going to actually do a little walkthrough on the podcast, so you guys can see it in action, so you can get a head start. Okay, find a job.
Yeah, we have one new job this week. It's a full-time position for an application developer, ColdFusion, at Arlington, Virginia, posted on March 9th.
Yep.
And then you still can find, over 30 positions on the getcfmljobs.com site. Very grateful for that resource.
Yep, very cool. So if you guys are looking for something, definitely check that out. If you guys have a posting you'd like to share, let us know and we can add it to our show notes as well. Okay, so ForgeBox module of the week. So once we have Eric here, we usually want to let him talk about one of his bazillion modules. I'm trying to catch you. I've got a few that I've done lately too, but I'm nowhere near your level.
Bazillion.
Yep.
All right. The one I chose this week is redirect back. It's very simple. It came from the use case of I was submitting the form in a ColdBox app, and there were some validation errors, and I wanted it to go back to the page it came from. And I didn't want to have to figure out what that page was. I just wanted it to go back. So that's where this module came from. Every time you make a request, at the end of the request, it will cache the page that you are visiting, as long as it's not like an AJAX request. And then if you do call the redirect back, it will use that as the event. So other than that, it looks just like the relocate function call. You can pass in any of those things. But yeah, it just makes it look a little bit nicer in your code, and especially if you have multiple forms submitting to the same place, it lets you send them back to where they came from instead of having to pass that in as a form field or something like that. So.
Yep. Again, a simple module, but just does something that you do over and over yourself, again, all the time. So add the module and don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. So now Visual Code hints, tips, and tricks of the week. So this one was an interesting one. It's pretty new. It's only got 345 installs, but looks pretty neat.
About 5 stars.
Yeah, 5 stars.
Yeah, I found this on Twitter this week. It's called Code Tour, and the idea is you can start recording, and what it will record is the file you open and any comments that you put in there. So if you click around a bunch and you're trying to find it, it won't record that. But once you add a comment as part of the tour, it would jump in there, it would show your comment, and it's a way to explain your code base interactively that someone can play back instead of needing to sit down or record a video or something like that. So
yeah, and so I got my screen share up for those who are watching, and you can see they got the little animated GIF like everyone does these days, but it sort of shows you walking through and saving these little code tours, and then you can basically go and play it. And so it keeps them on the left hand side. You can click play, and it will basically step through them one by one. So when you close them off, you go to the next one. So it's kind of interesting. So yeah, pretty cool.
yeah,
I think.
I believe it just saves it as a JSON file. You can commit it to your repo, see changes. So it's a nice way to get somebody familiar with your code base.
Yeah, and then you can obviously have multiple tours and there's different steps and everything, and so the documentation here works pretty good, talking about how to navigate one, how to create one, etc. So, pretty neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so that takes us to our Patreon supporters. So thanks everybody who are supporting us via Patreon. If you'd like to learn more about it, go to patreon.com/Ortus Solutions. You can see all of our interesting packages. We got lots of small ones all the way through to the big ones if your company's looking to support all of our open source work. But again, our first goal is to cover the podcast costs, and so we're about almost 40% of the way there. So some more support would be great. Especially if you're liking all the content about the podcasts and everything else we do. But also, once we've reached that mark, the Patreon support will go on to support things like CommandBox, ForgeBox, ColdBox, ContentBox, TestBox, and 100 million modules we have out there?
Gazillion. I believe was the number.
Oh, that's so gazillion plus 2 since you've done most of them. But yeah, so thanks everybody. We do have a pretty big list here. I think it's my turn to read them because you think you read them last time. So Thank you, Andrew Davis, Brian White, Calvin Stedden, Dali, Dan Card, Daniel Garcia, David Ballinger, Tadias Nikki, Don Bellamy, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight, Jan Yannick, Jeremy Adams, John Farrar, Jordan Clark, Joseph Lamery, Laxmar Tidohadi, Matthew Clemente, Mingo Hagen, who's our newest supporter, Richard Herbert, Samuel Knowlton, Scott Steinbeck, VJ, and Yogesh Mathur. So I really appreciate all you guys' support. Whether it's big or small, it all does help. So thank you. And if you go to ortussolutions.com/about-us/sponsors, you can see that page, including a few special sponsors too. I know that there's a few that go above and beyond, and so they're spotlighted there as well. So thank you, everybody. So that brings us to the end of this week's episode. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We got hopefully a lot of good content coming next week as well. Hopefully some good news as well. So hopefully everything, gets under control soon, and hopefully everyone is safe and healthy wherever you are.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great one. Bye.
See ya.
Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernize.Die.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.